This is the last act, so hopefully we, go out in style. But we'll also not keep you too long. So I'm really excited to be able to host this React Native panel. My name is Jamin Holmgren, and yes, 4-time ice hockey champion. This is true. I won't tell you what level of league it was, not NHL. So I'm extremely excited about this. I will give each of these amazing people a chance to introduce themselves in just a moment. So, but I'm going to go first, and I have a few notes. So, yes, I live up in Portland area. I've been doing software for about 20 years, which is crazy to say, and React Native for the past 8. I basically started doing React Native as soon as it came out. And, I live on 3 acres with 3 of my 4 kids. My oldest is now a software engineer, which is awesome. He's following in my footsteps. The only downside is he's doing Vue and Laravel. Why couldn't he just get a tattoo or something, rebel? I run a React Native consultancy called Infinite Red, and I'm also the host of the React Native radio podcast, and also organizer of Chain React Conf, which is a React Native conference. Anybody here been to Chain React Conf or going to go? Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. I'd love to see you all there. Feel free to swing, come talk to me. I have a discount code, maybe, for people at this conference. So, you can also follow me at Twitter, at Jamin Holmgren. I talk a lot about React Native. All right, so, panelists. I'm going to start with you, Kevin. And what I want you to do is introduce yourself and say what you do at Meta. And also, I want you to say something weird that you do with technology or a weird technology that you've used in the past. So, for example, my website, jamin.dev, is written in QBasic. I'm not kidding. It's open source. You can go check it out. So let's start with you, Kevin. Introduce yourself and something weird.
All right. Can you hear me? Yeah? All right. I'm Kevin. I've been in Meta almost 10 years. I've been in the journey of React Native since the beginning. I somehow landed in a team using React Native. I have no idea. But that was before open sourcing, so I stick around until today. So I'm an engineering manager, so supporting all the new architecture, basically all the work from Nico, Ricardo announced today. Yeah, and I still code, unfortunately. Yeah. Anyway, the weird technique, it's not really weird, but my debugging friends are print statement. Console logging, I never use debugger sometimes because I don't have time for that setup. Yeah. Right? And yeah, that's me.
All right, thanks a lot, Kevin. And Nico, I'd love to have you introduce yourself, what you do at Meta, and some weird use of technology that you've done in the past.
Awesome. So, hi everyone, my name is Nicola. I'm a software engineer on the React team. And what I do is I answer to GitHub issues for React Native. No, I do a lot of work on React Native, and so weird use of technology. Yeah, I also run a podcast. It's quite niche. It's about open source, and I started it during the pandemic, and I obviously wanted to self-host everything. So I created my own infrastructure and so on, and I used static site generator. And now people will throw stones at me because I use Jekyll, which is written with Ruby. Don't hate me for that, but I was ignorant. I was not using React before. So yeah, I literally spent an entire year building it, and then at some point I just realized, okay, I actually need to record episodes at some point because, nice infrastructure, but you need to have content. So yeah, that's my weird use of technology, I guess.
That's like every developer blog. It's like, hey, here's my new blog from 4 years ago.
Exactly.
No new articles. All right, thanks a lot. Olga, you're next. Introduce yourself, what you do at Meta, and some weird use of technology.
All right, my name is Olga. We just met. If you were here 20 minutes earlier. I am an engineering manager at Meta. on the React team, and I've actually been at Meta for exactly 2 years. Like, this is the day when I started 2 years ago, which is really cool. And what I do is, I guess I talk a lot. I'm not sure what else, but maybe I'm making some contributions. I talk a lot about cross-platform React, React Native Desktop. If you're interested in those things, come talk to me. Weirdest use of technology, at a startup that I was at years ago, we were building these modular robots. And the robots were controlled by a real-time operating system running in an isolated core in a Windows machine. And what I was doing was building modular React UIs to talk to this real-time operating system to give you the ability to control this robot. So we had like a WebSocket streaming state back and forth. It was really great, but it was React, and it was for the first time we created like actually beautiful UIs for controlling these things. If you look at actual usual industrial UIs, they're not good.
That's awesome. Thanks, Olga. And last but not least, Ricardo, please introduce yourself, what you do at Meta, and some weird use of technology.
Hi, everyone. I'm Ricardo. I'm a software engineer in the React team at Meta. I work closely with Nicola. We reply to all your questions on GitHub. My background is on iOS engineering, so if your iOS app is building, it's probably because of some of my work, even if it's failing, but like, let's not go there now. OK, weirdest technology I used in the past. I am a mobile engineer. My first mobile device was a Symbian, and I had to write C++ code to make it communicate with a controller for a wheelchair over Bluetooth.
That's awesome. Thank you all.
Stuff.
I appreciate it. So we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to get right into the questions here. The first one is regarding the new architecture, and you may have heard about this before. Some of you may not totally know, but in short, the new architecture for React Native is a rewrite so that it brings React Native into the React 19 era. It enables all these new features that you've been learning about this whole conference. So, Ricardo, I'm going to put you on the spot. How is that new architecture rollout going? Is it going according to plan? And when do you expect the new architecture to be stable?
OK. Easy question to start, OK? Perfect. Well, as you know from the keynote this morning, like, the rollout is proceeding pretty well. We put it officially in beta today. What does it mean for it to be in beta? It's because we want you to try it. We think it's stable enough for you to try it out in your application. But it is still a beta. So, like, expect some rough edges, something that we need to make perfect or make it more stable. We need your help for that, so that's why we are asking you to try it out and report issues. When do we expect a stable version? We hope for by the end of the year, this year. But you know, life can happen, so that's the expectation.
I appreciate you putting a date out there, even if it's just an estimate. That's OK. All right, Kevin, I've got one for you. So you've been around a while. I'm not calling you old. I'm just saying you've been around a while. You've been around for basically most of React Native's, is it all of React Native's history?
Almost.
Almost all of it. So first off, I want you to maybe give a little bit of history of React Native itself. Like, can you give us a little insight? Well, actually, here's the question. When you were first shown React Native, did you think it was just wild, like this could never work, or did you immediately see the possibilities?
Yeah, funny story. So I was an iOS engineer before joining Meta. We had this bootcamp, so my mentor gave me a task. It says React and CSS. I'm like, OK, I guess that's a warm up. I open the task and then start working on it, and the instruction says install an iOS simulator. I'm like, what? What is going on here? And then that's React Native, and I thought, actually, this is pretty cool. Before that, I read the React website, and I thought it was weird. I mean, sorry, I'm not a web dev. But learning React from the native point of view from iOS actually is super easy. Like, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, makes sense, view and text. So yeah, that's my take.
That's awesome. So recently, the RFC for React Native frameworks was released, and it was talked about earlier in this conference. So Nico, obviously it's Expo at this point, but obviously this is sort of laying the groundwork for other frameworks as well. How do you see the React team's relationship with Expo and potentially others evolving over the coming years?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, like, I wanted to mention how, yeah, I mean, this morning I was there at the podium and we just mentioned, yeah, you should use Expo. It was like 2 minutes announcement. But those 2 minutes are the result of like 1 year plus of work. Like literally, we had recurrent meeting with folks at Expo, ColdStack, Microsoft. We spoke with the community. We asked opinions because we just don't wake up one day in the morning and call out like, hey, yeah, you should use this tool and so on. Like we literally did a huge amount of work with our partners because we really believe that we wanted to steer the community in the right direction. So this is, I think, like a breakthrough for React Native. I remember like last year, Eli, which is somewhere in the audience, there, he asked me and other folks also, what do you feel is the right move to 10x the React Native adoption? And I feel, and a lot of other folks that I talk with also feel the same, that moving towards this model where we have like React Native core and like framework layer on top is the best way to be competitive in the cross-platform market. Because it's not just React Native out there, right? There is Flutter, there are like other solutions, and we want to offer the best tooling for our users.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you know, Olga, you just talked a little bit about how we have convergence really between React.js Web and React Native with, of course, you know, React server components. You know, Evan showed that on React Native, and that's going to be on web as well. React Strict DOM, React Native DOM now. So, as a React Native developer myself, do you see React Native being continuing to be like a distinct thing, or do you see them converging into one thing eventually? And where, if it's going to be distinct, where will it be distinct?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think what we're looking to do really is just narrow the gap between React and React Native. And in a lot of ways today, the gap is not like a well-thought-through plan of differences that make sense. It's a lot of things that kind of happen incidentally or maybe where React Native needs to catch up a little bit. So those are the things we're working on eliminating. We are never going to get to the point where we just have one framework and it ships everywhere and you have like this single code base that ships everywhere. There's always going to be room for platform-specific expertise and like that, you know, maybe the last 10% of platform-specific polish that requires kind of native expertise. So you're never going to get to the 100% shared code, but like except in maybe simple cases. But really, to create truly like native-feeling experiences, you're always going to need to do something different for React Native versus React.
I'm glad you said that, because now I still have a business for a while.
You're welcome.
Don't make me do web again. I'm sorry. Was that out loud? So one of the questions that I have gotten actually from some of you out there, and I'm sorry for those of you on this side, I'm really not trying to exclude you. This thing was not easy to move really quickly here, so, but I guess you can see us up there. One of the questions that I will get often from non-React Native developers, and even React web developers will ask me this, I've been asked this at this conference, is will React Native kind of keep thriving? Or is it going to eventually, like, are these companies going to kind of lose interest in it and will it just disappear? And I know from my own standpoint, I've been a part of technologies that have kind of flattened out. I used to be a Ruby on Rails developer. I enjoyed it, but it sort of flattened out and maybe isn't thriving quite as much as it used to. So I would love to have maybe a few of you answer this question. I'm going to start with Kevin. First off, like from your perspective, do you see React Native continuing to thrive, especially at Meta? And in what ways is Meta investing in React Native internally?
Yeah, so as you know, Nico shared today from the keynote, there are thousands of screens, surfaces. Those are individual surfaces within Meta products. Facebook app had 1,000 plus. I'm kind of responsible as well, like trying to make sure they're fine there. So there's a lot of use case, and the org grows, and use cases continue. So I don't think it's slowing down. It's actually growing. So yeah, from Meta point of view, I think it's going to continue. So Olga, you want to add something?
Yeah. So I actually get this question from some of my friends too. Sometimes like, oh, is React Native, is that still a thing? Like, should I develop with that or Flutter or whatever? And I'm always a little surprised to get that question because I think internally, maybe we don't talk about this enough, but it just doesn't feel that way at all being at Meta. Our team is bigger than it's ever been. The number of developers at Meta using React Native is bigger than it's ever been, and it's growing. And the number of partners like a lot of what I do every day is talk to new partners at Meta. The number of those folks is growing as well. So I think Meta's investment in React Native is only going to continue to increase, and that's even over my past 2 years here, I've observed that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And even as we've seen in this conference, a fairly big chunk of it was React Native, and not just from Meta. There were, Amazon, for example, gave a great presentation about this. And I look at Microsoft's investment as well as being a good signal for the health of the community and all of that. Ricardo, I have a question for you. So if anybody in the community who's using React Native, and if they have ideas or improvements for React Native, what is sort of like the best way to get started down that route?
Okay. So I guess that we can divide the ideas and contribution into buckets, like small contribution and bug fixes, things that are issues that are open. You can just submit a PR for that, and one of our engineers will jump on the PR and help you shape it in the best way and make sure that we can land it. If there are bigger contributions, like new features, stuff like that, the best thing to start is probably to either reach out to one of the Meta engineers and start discussing about that. Like, for example, in this conference, I had the chance to talk with a lot of you and collect some ideas. And the next step is usually to open up RFC on the proposal and discussion GitHub repository, where we can start talking about that. This is the first step. Meta engineer will jump on that RFC. We're going to share our comments, our concern, help you shape it in the best way, and create a plan to make it happen, which is also something that we did together for the White Gamut display P3 support, which is progressing.
Yeah, that's great. And I can definitely say firsthand that the React team, React Native team, they're very, very willing to help when there's an improvement that makes sense to do. So definitely reach out. Don't just submit a PR, like a giant PR, and be like, hey, merge, please.
That's the worst thing to do.
Yeah. There's no context. There's, it's a very, there's a lot of people using this. So this question is for really any of you. I'm going to ask Nico first, though. So I counted up the number of languages that if you were to touch almost every aspect of React Native, the number of languages I think is 10.
I think it's more than 10.
Is it more than 10?
I think yes, yeah.
Do you mind if I try to list them all? Okay.
Let's list
so
them all.
JavaScript, TypeScript, Flow, because obviously internal, right? And then you have Objective-C, Java, Swift, Kotlin. You have Ruby in the build tooling. You have Groovy. Do you all know what Groovy is? Yeah, some of you know what Groovy is. All right.
Sadly, yes.
C++.
Yeah, obviously. Big one. There are some files in assembly.
In assembly.
Yeah. What else do we have? I think, Bash scripts.
Yeah. Bash scripts? Okay. Yeah, I was way off.
Windows batch files.
Yeah. In Windows.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, C# too. If you're doing React Native Windows. Not core, but yeah. Anyway. Okay, so that leads into my question. So the skills that are needed to work on the different aspects of React Native are understandably quite vast. So how do you keep up with all of these different languages and APIs and platforms?
It is really a challenge, I have to mention. And that's also one of the reasons why we put a lot of care in what we ship in React Native releases. And really, we try to reduce the number of breaking changes as much as possible, but I feel we are not yet at the quality level we would love to be. So there is space for improvements. Like, for example, over the last year, we started rolling out tools that helps us inspect if the API changes on Android or in C++ or on iOS are changing, because sometimes like you add a new feature and it touches, as you said, like 4 different programming languages. And then you need an expert in every field to tell you if that change would actually be a breaking change or a behavioral breaking change on a given platform. So catching those changes like automatically is extremely hard because of the nature of mobile development. So we are like doing a lot of work, as I was saying before, like during the keynote, on like how more focused we are on making releases that are like less breaking and so on. Like we are in the right direction. Obviously, again, there is space for improvement there, but yeah, it is a challenge. Yeah.
Ricardo, do you have anything to say on that one?
I mean, to answer to the portion of how do we keep up, luckily we are a team. We have several people, different experts, as Nico was mentioning. So if I had to touch something on Android, I may put up some changes, and then I go to Nico and ask him, like, does this make sense? Or, like, I did something wrong? And same stuff, if he has to do something changes on iOS, usually comes to me and can review this code. So we try to leverage each other as a team and every, like, strength of the people that we work with, to make sure that what we push to both internal and the open source side of things is the right thing to do.
So I'm going to give you a little bit easier question, hopefully. This is for everyone. What do you think has improved the most about React Native in the last year? And then what would you like to see improved in the coming year?
I guess I can go.
All right.
Oh, you want to go? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm biased. I really see React Native from the open source perspective as much as possible. And I feel personally that the release quality has improved a lot. Like, upgrading React Native version is easier, at least just by looking at the diff of the upgrade helper if you don't use Expo. And generally, like, I personally also feel that the way how we respond to the community has improved quite a lot. Like in the past, you probably opened like GitHub issue, and you even spent time like creating reproducer and explaining us why things were not working in a certain way, and then maybe you got ghosted. And no one answered you, and then, yeah, like your effort went in the void. Well, trust me, the amount of issues that we receive daily is still significant. But I feel that we personally, like, we are doing a better job in understanding the signal-to-noise ratio, no? In how the community is telling us if things are working well or not. So, for example, we look at the React Native subreddit more frequently. We looked at issues reported on Twitter more frequently. We looked at all the issue reports on GitHub, and we try to tell you, like, okay, we can fix it like in the immediate future, or like, no, we don't have capacity now, your bug is important, we will get over it as soon as possible. So I think that really the relationship that the React Native team has with the rest of the community has improved, but you folks should tell me, like, that's my side of the story, obviously.
I would agree, just from my perspective, absolutely. Any other responses to that question? Just to read it again, what has, in your opinion, has improved the most about React Native in the last year, and what are you looking forward to, improving in the next year?
Yeah, I'm gonna give some perspective, not from the technical side, but in terms of expertise. We started with a small team, trying to like rebuild the whole new architecture and stuff. We learned a lot. We actually spent time learning C++ from the scratch, from zero. I mean, that's how we learn. I mean, we're not expert really, but we help each other. And then I think over time we grow number of people, and then we have to keep shipping. We have to keep building and keep rolling out and stuff. And then how do you keep up with that learning curve while growing the team and making sure when life happens, things continue to ship. So I think we got a lot better.
Okay, I didn't realize, but the time is going very quickly. So I'm going to skip a few questions. And I asked people around the conference for some spicier questions, just to make you sweat a little bit. All right? So they may or may not have been on some of the questions I provided to you beforehand. Okay, so why doesn't Instagram use React Native?
You're talking about Instagram, right? Yeah. Okay. So for the record, Instagram web use React, so that's fine. The mobile app actually use React Native. There are some part of it. I'm not fully aware like which part, but like there are some usage. But at Meta, we don't really force people to use the technology, right? I think we really need to see like what's the use case and what is the expertise that the organization have. So for example, if an organization already have like a full iOS, Android dev, like does it make sense to force them to use non-Android, non-iOS? Probably not. So I think it's more about like how you leverage that expertise for the need at a time. So I mean, I can't really say why the usage is limited, but it all depends. It's not like we're trying to take over the world for something.
Yeah. So this one's not quite so spicy, but I am curious about this one as well. What do you see the role of React Native Web being? And I know there's some overlap with some of the things in the past, but I really want to hear this one.
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, React Native Web continues to play a really important role and will continue to play a really important role. But what I think something that I see changing as we move the React Native API closer to the web is the amount of work that React Native Web has to do is going to really, really shrink. So ideally, React Native Web can be a really, really thin layer. And if you want to, in the future, write your code using the React Native API and ship it to the web, you'll be able to do that, but you will not have as many downsides in terms of performance, because the React Native Web would just be a really thin layer on top of React Native. But I think it really is going to probably serve a complementary role to RSD, where you'll be able to kind of use whichever API you want, and still be able to get the functionality you want on React Native and React.
Okay, last question. When are we going to see version 1.0?
I was waiting for this one, man. Yeah, I mean, what's the next question?
I'm sorry, I'm out. I have no more.
Okay, well, we are discussing about versioning, as you can imagine. What I was telling you before is that, I mean, we are really committed to what we ship. And we want to ship versions that are stable, and we want you to trust us that we're not going to break those APIs and those behaviors. We had a number of discussions in the past of like, React Native is stable. Like, people are shipping like huge apps with it. Why are we calling it a 0x? And imagine also from like a CTO point of view, like people, do you want to trust a technology that is released as 0 dot something? So yeah, like we had a number of conversations in this space. But as I said before, I think there is space for us to improve. There are a number of steps that I believe we should still take till we will see React Native 1.0. And that means like more stable API, like being like we want to demonstrate to the React Native community that we can go 1 year plus without breaking changes, and that will be the moment when we are actually like ready to ship a 1.0.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I'm going to drag my meme out that I tweeted the other day and retweet that again. It shows a guy looking in anticipation, and it says React Native 0.99, and then the next panel says React Native 0.100.
That would be awesome.
Well, thank you all for being part of the panel. Let's give them a big hand of applause.